Hello and welcome, and in today's video I'm going to share with you the top 10 Ark Tames with useful abilities, so let's just get straight into it. Now, I think many wouldn't consider the RG to have any special abilities, but I think that is far from the truth, as the fact that it has a smithy attached to its saddle and the fact that it can heal up quickly are abilities in itself, along with the insane weight reduction, and I think it deserves a lot more recognition for its useful abilities than perhaps it usually does. The fact that it's got a smithy as a saddle is incredibly useful for repairing your metal gear, often because I carry metal ingots around with me. For people that don't, maybe not as useful. You might want something like a phoenix to smelt your ingots for you on the go, or a quetzal with a platform saddle and a smelter, but provided you've got some ingots on you, it's an incredibly useful feature, at least for me it is. The fact that also it can heal up in such a rapid succession with, that healing ability when you eat a dead animal is great for combat scenarios. Not really perhaps the best for PvP, but for PvE it does come in handy when you're trying to get a quick getaway per se. So it is fabulous for that, and of course, on top of all of that, it's got the weight reduction on things like metal, crystal and obsidian, which is just a nice thing to have, really. Coming up next, we have got the Bilzabufo, and this is just so great for gathering cementing paste. It's absolutely insane the utility you can get out of a creature like this. Personally, it is my go-to for cementing paste. On the insect cave on the islands, you can get obscene amounts of cementing paste. Like, it's genuinely sort of a little bit disturbing how much cementing paste you can get, and it's far more than you'll be able to get out of beaver dams. And in some ways, especially considering the beaver dam respawn times, it is much faster than going around and getting the same amount with beaver dams, because you're getting tens of thousands each time, at least on the rates that I've got, and it perfectly fulfills my cementing paste needs, and I think for that it is a very useful ability, and it is very deserving of being on this list. Next up, we have got the Roga, and what really isn't there to say about a creature like this when it comes to its useful abilities? For a starter, it can pick up a very large range of creatures, from large to small. The fact that it can pick up Volts and Rexes and Paraceratheriums is just still absolutely insane to me, because usually you'd have to cryopod or soul trap them, because obviously the soul trap mods are so much better than using default cryopods. So I really do attribute them for that, as it still is a really cool and interesting and I think useful feature to carry dinosaurs around like that. But on top of it, they are very agile flyers, and their attacks are useful as well, dealing heavy amounts of damage. You can tear some bases to them as well before the nerfs happened, specifically on ASA really, but they're still incredibly useful for all of that. But I've mainly put these things here just for the sheer amount of carrying strength which they've got, because personally it is a favorite of mine, and the fact that it can carry all those creatures I think is useful to me. I personally use it. I know a lot of people won't because cryopods and things, but I still think it's a useful ability, and it comes in handy for me sometimes when I've run out of cryopods or soul traps or anything like that, or if I just want to carry something around that's wild for taming. So there's some great uses for the Roga, mainly in the picking up of things, and that's why I put it here. In number 7, we have got the Snow Owl, and what a creature this is, because of course this is just the best healer out there. Sorry Daedon, but I much prefer the Snow Owl too, so I'm keeping this on the list for sure. It 100% deserves to be on here, because when you need to heal your creatures, it's incredibly useful to have one of these things around. And for one of the later creatures on this list, the owl pellets are incredibly useful. Some subtle foreshadowing there, I guess. Their glide ability is also great for traveling around the map too. I often find myself using it because you might as well just use it, to be honest. It makes the flight path a lot faster, and I think I prefer it from the Griffin's glide for whatever reason. It just is better for me, quote unquote, let's say. But yeah, the Snow Owl, absolutely amazing for doing any sort of healing, and it's got that night vision mode as well, and it's got a very nice glide ability. So it's a very nice creature indeed, and I have to put it here for its very useful abilities, because personally it very much deserves to be on a list like this for obvious reasons. Coming up next, we have got the Mwing, and this simply has to be here for me, as personally the glide ability which it's got is so incredibly useful that it can't be downgraded or dismissed for it. And the reason why I haven't put it as high on the list is because it is only the one special ability and perhaps not used by everyone, but personally I think it offers such great travel utility, and personally it is also better than the Rhino Ignatha for travel. I think a lot of people can agree with me there, especially considering the level in which the saddle for the Mwing is unlocked. It's like level 18 or 19 or something stupid like that. It is absolutely insane the amount of travel versatility the Mwing offers, and of course it does act as a portable feeding trough as well, along with the fact that it can gather berries too, which are just all nice additives to have on top of the insane traveling ability of this creature, especially considering just how easy this thing is to actually get. At number 5 we have got the Vonaur, and I simply had to put this thing here as the fact that no other creature is like it, and it is a literal portable turret is just such a cool concept to me, and a useful one in my opinion, as often when I'm going out I'll take around an Vonaur, obviously because I'm still playing ASE, and you know, Genesis Part 2 Vonaurs exist. I'm going to use them over the default Vonaurs you get on Extinction, but you can still use those on ASA of course, and I have done a little bit with them, but not all too much I'd say. But the fact that it can shoot those spines and they scale as well when you level up that melee damage, sadly not when you ride them, but I don't use them as base defense, so it's alright. They are amazing for all of that combat skill, and I can get around the map just fine and have no issues dealing with any enemy that faces me really. And of course it's just really cool, and who doesn't like a literal living turret that shoots out spines from its body? It is simply fantastic, and it is a very useful ability to me. Next up then we have got the Gacha, as I alluded to before, and the reason why I'm putting it so high on the list, even though perhaps I shouldn't really, is because the Gacha is one of those creatures where the loot I get from it is great, and you know, pre-nerf it was even better. I still think it's an incredibly useful ability, and no other creature has it like the Gacha, and for that other reason I do really have to put it here on the list. I personally love the Gacha and the fact that you can get all of this off of it, and with the combination of working great with the Snow Owl too with the pellets, it is great what you can get out of the Gacha in my opinion, and I think for that reason it simply does have to be on the list as just such a great useful ability, especially if you can get some good production out of them as well, which is another ability which they offer. Going in at number 3 we have got the Desmodus, and this is absolutely amazing for blood bag farming, and Sanguine Elixir is so great for tames. It simply has to be on the list for me, as well as a very useful gliding ability shared with creatures like the Snow Owl and the Griffin. Of course, this is a king when it comes to mobility as well, and you can even pick players off riders too if you're working in PvP scenarios. But the main reason why I have this thing here is for the blood pack farming, because I especially love Bloodstalkers. They're great for underwater travel and versatility for me. If I had to put an honorable mention on this list, it would be the Bloodstalker, because I personally love them as dinos, and then the fact that you can make Sanguine Elixir as well, which is just a cheap, easy 30% off of your tames as well when it comes to how quickly they tame. They're just nice abilities to have, and it's a great creature really, so I think for those reasons it simply has to be on the list. In number 2 we have got the Deinonychus. Perhaps a weird place to see this on the list for me, considering it's usually basically always in at number 1 or just not on the list at all, but today I put it in at the number 2 spot because there is one creature which perhaps overshadows it in my opinion, but it is an incredibly fast, agile and mobile creature which is great at traversing itself across the map. and it can even grip on to large enemies and absolutely turn to shreds. It's incredibly useful in boss fighting scenarios. Bosses can be done so easily with the Deinonychus, and you know, you can just see how quickly it's tearing this Brontosaurus to shreds. So they're incredibly useful for things like that. But on top of all of it as well, they are great climbers, and they also take no fall damage, which is just nice for my peace of mind, really. I like when a creature doesn't take full damage, frankly, because it means I don't have to worry about the quirky dismount thing just before I hit the ground to save my creature not taking loads of damage. The fact that, you know, they don't take full damage when you hit the ground is great, and they've got their little glider thing out with their feathers. They fall reasonably slowly. It's all nicely built in. Their climbing ability is great, and their functions in boss fights are simply amazing. And with the pack buff on top of all of this too, they really are basically unmatched, apart from the creature, which I've decided to put in at the #1 spot. And in at #1 is the UT, and for its fear roar and mainly its courage roar, frankly, I have to put this in at the #1 spot because it is by far the most useful ability that has been used by the most amount of Ark players out there. Who really goes to a boss fight without a Utaranus on their hands unless they're doing the mode? Of course, it's always going to be there, and since the X-UT came out in Gen 1, they're even more valuable than ever. And although, yes, that isn't out on ASA yet, still for all you ASE players out there, myself included, we get the benefits of the X-UT as well. They do tons of damage too, which is fantastic, although that's not usually their role in a boss fight. The traditional setup with one of these things and a Daedon is simply a classic, although I think the UT far outshadows the Daedon in its usefulness, in its abilities, of course, hence why I put it in at the #1 slot, and the Daedon hasn't been on this list at all. And for that one simple reason of its courage roar just being the most insane thing out there, really, for what the UT is, and the fact that it's used by so many people still to this day, considering it's been in the game since 2017, makes this the most useful ability ever had by any Ark creature. But anyway, that is the end of today's video, and I hope that you all have enjoyed, as I definitely enjoy making it. If you don't agree with my list, or you just want to put your own opinions out there, my comments on my list, put that in the comments below. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye! And give it up for our patrons, Ekaterina Puchkova and Karina Thorne, Dominic Acejewski, sorry about that name, and everyone else that's on this list. All the people I've mentioned are paid members, and if you feel like that's something you want a shout out at the end of the video, go join the Patreon or become a paid YouTube member.